And I think we're recording now if I'm doing this correctly on Zoom.
Hey, very good.
So welcome. I see we have Marcus and we have Kathy and Kristen Kelly just joined us, and several other people are going to be joining us from different parts of the world, many different time zones. I'm so excited to do this with my good friend Charisse. So I'm just going to give it another minute because I know a lot of people are coming on from different places. So if we could just I'll do a little intention meditation for everybody now that we have a few people on while we wait for other people to come on. So we'll kind of do a repeat of what we just did. So everybody take a deep breath. Deep, yummy, yummy breath. And imagine yourself surrounded in a bubble of white, translucent light, where the world of possibilities is wide open to you. And in this bubble of white light, we are connected to our guardian angels and our guides to give us clear answers for our path in every way. And to relieve us from any blocks that get in the way of us living a joyful, passionate, beautiful life. Which is the theme of today: passion, play, pleasure, business, mixing it all together in a yummy way. I'm so excited. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm sure some more people are going to join us, which is beautiful. And many, many, many will join us afterwards as we share the link. So first of all, I'll let you know what I do, but then I'm going to pass the mic to my really good friend, Charisse. So I am the Healer's Catalyst. My name is Ana Medina, and I live in Boulder, Colorado. Very excited. I've been here for a month. And what I do is I am the archaeologist of the subconscious and the soul. What does that mean? That means I help people remove the blocks that get in the way from the subconscious, mental, physical, emotional, energetic, so that prevent us from living in a way consistent with our divine human selves, which is who we are. But there's so many things that get in the way. So we dig deep down, and we remove those blocks so that we could really be the powerful beings that we are. I record meditations for people, custom meditations with beautiful binaural beats and beautiful music behind them to help enhance the transformation. And I also lead retreats in Yucatan, dealing with our shadow side and the secret sacred sides of Yucatan. So that's what I do. I'll tell you a little bit more about how to contact me at the end, but I would like to introduce my beautiful friend, coach, and partner in everything fun and pleasurable, Charisse Sisu. And Charisse has a degree in gender studies, and she's been helping women get in touch with their bodies for over 10 years, right? And she also runs retreats, workshops, and all kinds of beautiful events for us to just really embody everything beautiful and luscious that we are. And, so Charisse, welcome. I'm so excited to talk.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you are welcome. So the first thing I want to do is to honor our men that are joining us, that are here today with us, that are going to be joining us later on when I send the link to some people that have asked me to send the link. So the first question for you, I have several questions. I'm so excited.
Oh, sure.
Is I know that your main focus is working with women. So why is this relevant to men too?
Oh my God. So such a good question. Well, as you know, and as some of you may not know, my mission is to populate the world with happy women.
Woohoo!
The men are pretty happy with this as well, just because they get to reap all of the benefits from that. But why it's as important for men as for women is I really talk about balancing the feminine with the masculine. And so we all have masculine and feminine within us. And so it's really about bringing that into balance and then also bringing that into balance on a global plane as well between men and women. So I love, love, love men and honor all of the gifts that they bring and honor women and all the gifts that they bring. And it's really like magical, the differences between us and what we can create because of that. Like not just babies, but all kinds of good stuff. So, and also I find that although I speak often and kind of primarily to women in terms of my coaching and my retreats and my workshops and all that good stuff, men can very much take the same information and use it. So learning how to bring pleasure into what we do. My hubby is in corporate and I am constantly planting little seeds of how he can add more pleasure into his commute, into his job, into etc. because that's what gives us the energy to like really do more. It's about bringing that into balance. Does that answer your question?
Beautiful. Yeah. So, well, you mentioned corporate, so let's go there for a minute because, we hear a lot, well, don't mix business and pleasure. And, a lot of people realizing that pleasure, if you're not loving what you're doing, you're not going to be as effective at it. But I want to go a little deeper with that. Like how I've been talking with some clients about their why and really energizing what they do through their why. How is pleasure related to the why, and how is all of that related to being successful in business? I think we might as well just go to the big question first.
How is pleasure related to the why? And then how that comes into corporate? Well, when you said corporate, it sent me back to my time in corporate. And actually, one of the ladies on the call was there with me.
Yeah.
And how I would infuse pleasure it was really about maintaining my energy and not to sort of be like sucked down into the corporate, like, rah. So one of the ways that I would do that is I would take dance breaks in the bathroom. I kid you not. I would like run off to the bathroom and I'd be in there shimmying and then say like if Kathy walked in, I'd be like, well, actually, Kathy, if you walked in, I just keep shimmying. But if anyone else walked in, I would just be like, oh, yeah, I'm just in here, fixing my makeup or whatever. But in terms of this connection between pleasure and our why, what I also have in my sort of experience and what I've done is to be a writer. And so I've helped tell the stories of some of the most interesting people in the world and a lot of our like industry leaders, corporate leaders included, entrepreneurs, etc. And what I can tell you is that there are no accidents along the way. So when I talk about pleasure, and it's like, what are your preferences? What is your desire? What pleases you? That absolutely plays into your why, because I think sometimes we get stuck in that what we're really, really excellent at. And so we're like, yeah, that's my thing. That's my purpose. I'm here to do accounting or whatever. And but where the why comes in is that it connects with what lights you up. And that for me is the connection with pleasure. And we don't always honor that, like even in terms of, let's say from the entrepreneurial perspective, in terms of who we're here to serve. So, and especially women, we love to include everyone, but just in general, we're like, oh, I don't want to say no to a client. However, when you really get clear on who you're excited to serve, who you are in love with and love to serve, it pays off in so many dividends for your business, because then you no longer have those like soul-sucking clients, and you also have so much more energy and excitement to meet the clients that you do have.
So it seems to me like what you're saying is that when you are connected to your pleasure and who you're here to serve, you become more clear and get rid of some of the energy drains.
Yes.
I talk to my clients a lot about the energy drains. So I'm, weaving all of this together. So the pleasure really informs you.
Yeah.
If I have a client, because all my clients are entrepreneurs. So, they all have clients, right? And we do want to serve everybody sometimes. We want to make sure that we are widespread so that our business is very successful. But the truth is that you will feel different. Like if I'm working with a client that doesn't give me pleasure to work with them, and pleasure, not meaning sexual pleasure, but I'm not excited. Like right now, all of the clients I have, when I see their name on my calendar, I'm like, oh my God, I get to talk to her, or I get to talk to him today, because I'm excited to serve them, right? But if we don't get that feeling of pleasure, you're saying, we may want to look again. Are we really trying to cast our net wide? And maybe that is not who we need to be serving. And if it's not good for me to serve them, it's not good for them. And they would probably be better served by somebody that gets pleasure by serving them. Is that kind of what I'm getting from this?
Yeah, it's good. And I love the connection that you made with the energy drains, because so our pleasure is like she's our guide. I'm just going to refer to her as she. And she informs, I know, because you know what I'm talking about. But like in general, she's our guide. So she won't steer you wrong. And also, and when I say guide, I say it's really our intuition as well. And where does that live? In our body. So how like you have a feeling, you'll have a gut feeling, you'll have like a surge in your heart center, you'll get goosebumps or whatever. Like our bodies are that first communication, right? Anytime we're getting an intuitive hit, or so if you have a question about like, what is really my pleasure here? You're not going to figure it up here. It's not a headspace thing. It's dropping down into the body. I can't remember who used to say this. It was like, I don't know, CEO of Sony, or it was like a big inventor guy in technology, a Japanese company. And he would say that when he had a decision to make, he would swallow it. He would make the decision, then he'd swallow it, and he would see how it would feel in his belly. And his body would tell him yes or no. And it's exactly the same thing with our pleasure. Like if you drop in and you go like, does this really feel good? And she'll tell you very clearly often.
Well, it will tell you very clearly. And sometimes it will tell you very clearly, and sometimes not so clearly. So let's go there for a minute, because I work with blocks, right? I work with stuff that gets in the way. And I work with limiting beliefs, and I work with just all of those yucky things. So the importance of being neutral, right? Because sometimes when we're listening to our body, we might get an emotional response that we may think is a yes to something, but it may be something that is coming from a wound. It may be something that we really want, but might not be. So how do you differentiate between that deep pleasure that is coming from like that deep, yummy, connected to the divine place? And how do you know the difference? Like
between like eating to fill a void versus eating in pleasure. Right. So such a good question. And a couple things. One, pleasure is like a muscle, so it really does take practice. And I would say, for me, what I share with my people is to connect with, so that you get to know like what pleasure feels like. 'Cause especially with women, like we sometimes, because we're so adaptable, and we'll sort of mold ourselves to the situation, the person, what have you, like our pleasure often becomes like what his pleasure is, or what our boss needs in that moment, or what our client is asking for us in that moment. We're like, sure, we can do that. Sure, we can do that. And we get like farther and farther removed from what actually turns us on. And so then it becomes this practice of like, well, how do I figure out if it's one of those things? Like, am I trying to please, or am I really pleasing me? Am I feeling a void or a hunger, or am I really pleasing me? So, oh gosh, what is a good tool for this? Well, there is a difference in the feeling. There's a difference in the groundedness of it. Like I know when I'm sort of eating because I'm like stuffing a pain, there's a huge difference, right?
I think we all know that one.
I'm the only one that's like turned to Haagen-Dazs in this moment. Like, fucking, I'm hitting the chocolate. And you can tell the difference because when you're really eating in your pleasure, like you taste it, you enjoy it, you reach your fullness point and you're good. When it's like trying to fill a hunger that has nothing to do with food, then it's like nothing will be enough, right? So it's like, oh. So there's that difference. Like pleasure is really satisfying. A little bit goes a long way, right? And then the other thing in there, I don't know, does that help? Is there something you can help to kind of demarcate in there? And then, you know, I really take us back in terms of the work that I take my ladies through. We really go, like, we really get into the body, start to pay attention to the body, who we're often ignoring. And our body is like, she's, or he is with us our entire lives, are like our consort, our companion. And this like highly evolved intelligence and communicator. So the more on better terms with our body that we can be, is best, because she or he will never steer you wrong, right? But one of the things that we do is we start to focus on just like little pleasures. Maybe it's that really the soap that you want to use in the shower, or it's really that taste that you want to have on your tongue, and it's just a little, it's like just, yeah, or like taking the most delicious smelling oils or lotion and like slowly rubbing them into the body. So it's like we start to reacquaint ourselves with, oh, this is what it feels like. I forgot that feeling, you know what I mean? Because it happens. It happens. I literally have women who are like, I can't feel anymore. There is no feeling. And there is always feeling. And sometimes it just takes a very, very, very gentle touch to start to reawaken that yearning for pleasure, and which is our desire.
Yeah. That's beautiful, because I get closer to the mic too, because I couldn't hear you there very much at the end.
Oh, sorry.
It seems like there is so much stimulation out there now that we lose a lot of our own sensitivity. And I think that sensitivity that you're talking about, I don't think we're so used to it anymore. So maybe you could give us a few practices. You know, you gave us a couple of examples, right? The oil, the soap. You know, what else could we do, men and women, do to tune our satellite? Because we really have the antenna right in our body, but we have so many things on it, and the lack of clarity, really, because there's just so much stimulation that we're not sensitive to that anymore, and we do get confused.
Yeah, it gets to be overwhelming.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be a sensitive person to really be like, oh, there's so much. Like even our food is like highly, highly, highly seasoned, because it keeps getting like more and more and more. And then you've got advertising from like on our phone, on our Facebook, and our social media, it's everywhere, right? So what dropped in for me, because there's a couple tools, but one tool that I love to share came from one of my dance mentors. So I don't know if you all had a chance to read my bio or know anything about me, but I was a professional belly dancer for 10 years, and it's really how I so got into how this work speaks through the body, how our body is, oh my goodness, not only so intelligent and such a good communicator, but she remembers everything. Just such an amazing tool in this process. So, but one of my dance mentors was a beautiful dancer, Yasmina Ramsi, and she would wind across the stage in this way that she looked like she was just floating. Like you're just like, how is she doing that? And not a young woman. Also, I would love to say that, because I love to debunk myths about belly dance. And one of them is this idea that the belly dancer is like the eternal maiden, yay, and her like cute little costume, and like, ah. And the thing is that my favorite dancers actually would probably better be characterized as crones than maidens, because there is a wisdom and an experience that comes, and it's like a rich sensuality that comes with that experience. But anyway, I digress. So Yasmina I was doing a training with her with other performers, and we were talking about being on stage and like how you bring that presence. And she's like, huff. And we're like, huff, what do you mean by huff? Huff of the time that you are on stage, no movement. And we're like, are you freaking kidding me right now? Like, we're all this room full of performers, and you're constantly moving. You're like, oh, let me come over here. Let me come over there. Let me just, let me work this part of the stage. Oh wait, this other part of the stage hasn't gotten attention. What about the audience in the back? Like, we're all over the place in general, right? Well, you can imagine as an audience member, how does that feel like if the dancer is constantly in motion? Will you love me? Will you love me? How about you? Will you love me? Stop eating your hummus. Pay attention to me. It's exhausting, just like this overstimulation. So I recently gave this tool to one of my clients or women in my circle who happens to be an entrepreneur. And she started to put in practice, because at first it seems like half. So what this looks like is, it doesn't mean like pure stillness for half your day. Like, we're not going to turn into like Buddha under the tree and all of a sudden we're like really, really productive for 2 hours and then like 2 hours, nothing. It is about bringing into balance, and it sounds almost insane, because who here is resting half of their day? Either quiet or stillness or unplugging. Yeah, I see that look, Deb. Looking at the camera like, what? Do I get 5 minutes a day? Yeah, right?
Right.
We're lucky if we get a full night's sleep, for heaven's sake. Oh, I almost dropped a curse word there. But
remember, I work with entrepreneurs, so there isn't much sleep or break typically in this community.
Right. However, this is what happens. So then we get this like burst burnout cycle. We're constantly burning ourselves out and overstimulated, just like you were talking about. So how do we connect with what actually makes us happy? We need to bring space into all of that stimulation. We need to bring rest, and rest is going to mean different things. It could mean reading like an actual book that you hold in your hands, like remember those, as opposed to the Kindle. It could mean fasting from Facebook for a night. Oh my God. Was that like, I know. I personally, I fast from the news. Totally and completely, like I have for years. Because I'm like, it's too overwhelming. Everyone makes their different choice, because of course my husband looks at me like, what? How can you not watch the news? But so it'll be different for everyone. It might be a walk, but what I would encourage is in that stillness, in that quiet, that it somehow involve the body. And literally it could be as simple as, I'm making a call to a client, and now I'm going to take 2 minutes to like smell the fresh flowers that I put on my desk. Or, yeah, right? It's like, just a little bit of space. That's all you need. And you keep weaving that through. And in fact, well, everyone who's registered for this call will be getting a copy of my book, Everyday Pleasure, because this is like one of my passions, is to get these tools into people's hands. How do we take the things that we already do every day and inject pleasure? It shouldn't be another item on the to-do list, because that's just exhausting. So yeah, so that bringing in those stillness, and I have different suggestions and tools in that book, so you'll be able to see those as well. But half, that is our goal, half of the time.
That is beautiful. And I think it's so, it's not necessarily what we do, right? It's kind of, I hate to say the word counterintuitive, because it should be intuitive, right, to do that. And it probably is at some level, but we have lost that idea that doing that and taking that minute to just look outside. And, here I live in Boulder, and I look outside my window and I see the Flatirons. And it's kind of making me do that, because I've been here only a month, and I look out the window. Every time I work, my desk is down there with a window to the Flatirons, and it kind of calls to me to say, stop and appreciate the beauty of where I am. And then I enjoy what I'm doing a lot better. And I'm more effective. The truth is that when we take that time, the idea is it's a waste of time. I need to be productive. I need to, go down my list and do item A and then B and then C and, go down the list like that. But when you do what you're saying.
Very masculine. Yeah.
Right. But when we do what you're saying, it sounds like not only do we enjoy it more, but we do have the ability to be even more productive.
Yeah, that is the thing. You're actually more productive. The more filled up you are, the more well rested you are. I mean, we know that, right? It's like, how much do you get done when you've had 4 hours of sleep versus 8 hours of sleep? It's like a huge difference. And I also, what dropped in as you were talking is another way to think about that rest is its presence, right? So even when I'm working with people with walking, and we'll talk about walking across the room. Let me demonstrate.
I love it when you demonstrate.
So instead of, right, so what happens is we're like, I'm busy. So it's like, you know, do our thing, right? And especially for women, this whole area stays like solid still. So resting can be just that moment when we've shifted our weight from side to side. It's like once you incorporate this into your walk, it becomes an imperceptible part of movement. And yet people are like, how does she move so magically? What is she doing? And all I'm doing is like bringing a little breath, a little rest into my move. I'm taking my time. Like, what's the hurry? Right? So, yeah. And for women especially, it's like there's all that gorgeous, I'm sure the men will agree with me on this, like there's all that gorgeous movement and sway that we have possible in our hips as we move. And that to me is like bringing in that little bit of rest. One side, then the other. Yeah.
It's Debbie. Now, my first exposure to Bold Heart was at the Fort Lauderdale weekend. And you sat in front of me. I could see you. And every time, and I didn't know who you were. I hadn't met you yet. I met you, I think, the last day. And I would just watch you sway as you would walk down to get to your seat. And you would put your hand, I think, on your husband's shoulder. And you would just sit down. And I was just like, you were so full of confidence and sensuality, and you were just loving the moment. And I was just like, how does she do that?
What I can tell you is it's a practice. Like I didn't out of the room doing that, right? It just became like at first it was very conscious. Like, whoa, I don't have to rush. Why are you rushing? Right. And then of course, as I became more and more comfortable in my body and allowed my hips to move, then that's like, there's just that natural, I mean, that's how the feminine body wants to move. And it's going to look different on every woman. That's what I love. It's so like, we're each beautiful in our own way. But it really was like a conscious choice to be aware of it and then just practice and practice and practice.
And I don't know, I came from corporate America. I was in corporate America for 28 years and I'm no longer there. But being in a high-tech sales position, many of my positions, I was the only female.
Yes.
And you were very conscious of how you walked, how much cleavage and skin you showed. And I mean, I paved the way, I think, for a lot of women who came after me, but it was you always between that, you know, I am a female, I am feminine to I can keep up with the boys, you know, and you're really thrown into that arena. And it's like, there's no book to read. You just figure it out and you go by your own standards, integrity, and whatever. But I think being in the position that I am in now, I could probably learn to say walk like that. But in the world that I was in corporate America, it would have to be toned down quite a bit.
Right. Well, yes and no.
Yeah.
Because I walked like that in corporate America. So, I mean, of course, I wasn't like cozying up to my honey in the audience at Mindset. So I wasn't like, woohoo, like really like girl from Ipanema swaying it, but I would allow my hips to move. And I noticed that it changed the way that people responded to me, men and women.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so, like, because, well, you've seen me move, so you know that there's a difference between being like overtly sexual,
Mm-hmm.
as in like, look at me for this reason. And, that's fun to play with, but not appropriate for corporate. Yeah. And then, because there's just no judgment in my house. I'm like, it's all good some of the time.
It's all good some of the time.
But to like, just, I know we're getting a little off topic with the pleasure, but it was a part of how I was able to bring my feminine presence into corporate, into business. And I think, we as women have often been put into this position of feeling like we have to kind of outdo the dudes and really like, show up as men. But when I can say, and perhaps like some of the men on the call can speak to this, is that men they really do have an appreciation for femininity, almost more so than women do. And what's really interesting too, and I know there's a long way to go, girl. I know you did pave the way, and I so honor you for that. There is a long way to go because it takes more women showing up as women in work to really do this big shift that needs to happen corporate, so that she doesn't feel afraid or that she won't be taken seriously or any of those side effects of showing up in her womanliness. But what's really interesting too is that those people that are sort of at the upper echelon of those companies, many of them men, right? Because we only have like 17% of CEOs or C-level, C-suite executives are women, something like that. It's like in the teens. It's really low. And but those men that are in the upper echelons, guess what? They're intuitive. They're all about collaboration and relationships with their teams. They're allowed to show their feminine and to claim their feminine, and they're rocking it. So imagine when we're able to do that on the other side. I think it's going to be really pretty amazing. But anyway, take us back to where we're going, Anna. Where do you want to go?
This was actually beautiful because it is part of the conversation, how to really be ourselves and to embody the divine feminine in every situation, without it necessarily being misinterpreted, like you were saying. Because if you do show up in your full feminine at an office full of men, then the idea is that you are calling in trouble.
Right. So here's the thing. What is so key is changing that story. Changing that story about, if I show up in my full feminine, these are the negative consequences that are going to happen. So for example, like me when I was young, the message was like, you're going to attract the wrong kind of attention. That literally was dangerous. Like I was in physical danger if I were to show any kind of effusive pleasure. And like, which meant, it really almost meant like anything that was considered too much. And as girls, that was pretty much anything. Too bossy, too loud, too pretty, too creative, because, we got to get serious, too whatever, too emotional. Oh, you're so sensitive, blah, blah, blah. Our emotionality, like our virtuosity with emotions, is one of our greatest gifts and strengths as women, and part of how we're going to heal the planet. But to return to what you were saying, oh man, I had a point. I swear I did. Showing up as all of who we are. Yeah, that danger sign that goes off, and part of that is because of like so many stories that we've been told. And I hope this seems relevant to you, but what comes up for me is that when we talk about actual physical danger, like predators that are out there that prey on girls and women, when you ask them how they choose the women that they target, they're not the women that are walking with confidence. They're not. They're the girls that are hiding, that are hunched over, that when they give them a little compliment, they go, who, me? So it's actually the opposite. It's been this huge BS story that we've been sold, that we have to turn the volume down in order to protect ourselves, when actually it's the opposite. When we turn the volume up, because what happens when a woman shows up as all of who she is, when anyone shows up as all of it, male or female, it's like riveting, right? Like you can't take your eyes off them. It's just like, who is this person? They're so in their essence and like enjoying being who they are, that it's the furthest thing from dangerous. It's actually like highly, highly attractive, right? So it's it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, so there were two things that I think were really magic points that I just want to underline. One of them was Debbie said, confidence, right? It brings you confidence. The other one is the intention. You mentioned the intention that you put behind walking the way you walk and being all of who you are. So if your intention is to attract men, well, that's what you're going to do. But if your intention is just to fully be in your beauty and to enjoy yourself, then that leads you to confidence, right? So weave that together, like the intentionality and the confidence.
Well, just to really quickly, what you were saying about, that sort of like moving to try and attract attention versus just enjoying and being in ourselves. And what's so interesting is that actually when you are trying to attract, that's repellent, right? It's like it's like the dancer who's like, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. What about me? What about me? And as opposed to the dancer who's like, I am here. I am so enjoying this spot on the stage. In fact, I'm just going to stand here for a second. All I'm going to do is just circle my wrist. Do you like that? Right? It's like, what? Yeah. So that in terms of intentionality, right? If you have that intention while you're trying to get something by showing up as all of who you are, that's when it starts to kind of like wah wah, right? It doesn't work the same way. Right. But when we do just show up that way, it's like, then we're just irresistible. Then people are like, oh my gosh, here's my credit card number. What can I get from you? Right? It's like, how do I work with you? So there's that. So, and in terms of the intention, like it is totally.
Get closer again. I can't hear you.
Oh yeah. No, I put this on because like I have children's both young and old in the house, and they were kind of moving around in the kitchen, and I switched to my headset. So the microphone is like on this very sexy orange thing here. Okay. So intentionality. I like when I played with this actually, like coming into a room and thinking about like the space that I was taking up, because we don't end at the ends of our fingertips. We don't end at the top of our head. We're this energetic body. And so my intention was always like, as I'm entering, it's this expansive like presence, like taking up more space than I appear to be taking up. I don't know if that's speaking to your intention, but I think actually what I said before was more about that intention. It's like, if we try to use this to manipulate or to make things happen, it falls on its face. Right. But when we truly do come from that place of genuinely enjoying our skin, our bodies, like just being who we are, and that goes, it goes both ways for men and women, but it's especially challenging for women to do because we get so many messages about being something other than we are. And then because we're so adaptable, which is one of our brilliances, like we'll like mold and shape ourselves and then we often lose ourselves. Yeah. So that it becomes really, really important to, as a part of this journey back to ourselves, and still maintaining, part of why that happens is because we have that diffuse awareness. We are so like intimately connected with, or intimately aware of how interconnected every single one of us is. And that's why we like so easily lose our sense of self. Whereas like men are more like contained. They're like, I'm here. This is what I'm doing. I'm singular focus. I'm like, it's really, really interesting and beautiful, the differences and the dynamic between the two.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned men because we actually have Marcus on the call raising his hand over here. So I'm going to
sweet.
So Marcus, I'm going to unmute you and you could ask your question.
Oh my God, I didn't mean to raise my hand.
Busted.
No, I'm totally busted here.
Yes.
Yes, just totally busted. Well, actually, I didn't, but I was, as you were talking, as you were speaking, I was thinking about, the power of intentionality,
Yes.
like your intentions, like they say, your results always, your intentions always come out in your results, always, always, always. And that includes the way you occur to other people. So when you enter a room or enter a team, that intentions overflows, right? And people pick up on that. I am particularly excited these days about, in the past when we first started talking about, the feminine side and what have you, it was very confusing to a lot of us guys, right? What do you mean I'm going to be a little bit effeminate, But actually, I am happy to report now that especially in corporate, there is a huge move towards collaboration, for example. Huge. It comes out in words like agile systems, Scrum. You have teams where people collaborate, and the central aspect of the team is really self-organization, the dynamic, not the structure, not the objects, the project plan, the this, the that. Is the collaboration. And it's kind of funny because I remember there were some conservative types back a few years back that were panicking because they said we're going to turn all our little boys into sissies. We always talk about collaboration. We want individuality. That whole hierarchical setting, which was all nonsense. Because here we are, like the most effective types of structures rely heavily on collaboration, in which and group dynamics and sharing.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because I'm going to go ahead and mute you. It's important to realize what we mean by feminine energy and masculine energy, and just acknowledging the fact that we all have all of it, and we all have a choice on how to use our energy. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Charisse?
Wow. Using the energy and you mean like the differences between masculine, feminine?
Well, just the fact, like what Marcus was saying, there's sometimes a confusion about masculine energy and feminine energy, thinking that men calling into their feminine energy means that they're going to be effeminate or whatever, but just honoring the fact that we are all both. We all have both, and we all have a choice to use whatever we need in the moment. Like, I know I could pull on my masculine energy when I'm very focused. I like systems. I like focus. I like sometimes to do things in a more linear way. And that serves me, especially if I'm going to be doing my taxes or billing or, parts of my business that require that. But then I could definitely pull on my feminine energy, and men can do the same. And the feminine energy being, which is where I live most of the time in my business, the creativity and like really talking to people and collaborating, right? So, that idea that we really do both have masculine and feminine energy. And we've lived, unfortunately, in a very masculine society, patriarchal, masculine society that has led to where we are. So how do we bring that back to balance?
It's sort of like it. So I'm so glad that you talked about that and the patriarchy and what we find ourselves in, because that's, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So that feminine energy, characteristics, etc., has been devalued within that. And so then that leads to that conversation of like, well, if I start leaning into my feminine, like, what's that going to mean about me as a man? So yeah, it really is when you start to like tease out, like, well, what does that mean? What are the gifts that we bring to the table? And how does that show up in each of us? And so when, and part of it, we can go back into like, so masculine is like, that's where that focus is, right? On the feminine side, it's like being able to hold many things in mind at once. Yeah. Then you have like that sort of the provider and versus receiving. So like receiving is, let's talk about receiving for a second, because this is like very much a feminine energy thing. But like you can see clearly that men also need to receive, right? Like you can't just be on the, and so it's something that we do need to balance. So just like, if you start talking law of attraction and it's like ask and it is given, and it's like the asking, like, here is my desire, this is what I want. And that like, putting that out there. And then the next step is like receiving it. And that's often where we have the trouble for both men and women, because it's like hard for us to receive, especially for women, because we've been like flipped on the other side. And like I talked about before, like the most effective, powerful leaders that I interviewed had very good balance between the male and the female. Like they were like engineers who also had tremendously creative and collaborative processes for solving problems. And that's what like really shot them up to the top of Motorola or whatever. How can I answer your question? Am I heading in the right direction?
You are. Unfortunately, we are out of time.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, thank you for watching that. I was like, I don't even have a clock on my screen right now.
I know, right? So we could talk about this for like a very long time. And I know we could. And this topic just goes on and on. It's very interesting as, there's more conscious people in business, in entrepreneurship, in life, right? Mm-hmm. We are beginning to realize that the importance of really balancing the divine feminine with the divine masculine, and just bringing it to a place where we could really have choice and be in both in a very, very yummy way. So I know that you and I will be talking about this a little bit more. Maybe we should plan another webinar, because I did promise people 45 minutes and we're on 47 at this point, which is
so let's
fine. But we could leave it at that for a minute, and know that we will come back to this topic and go a little bit deeper, because as the archaeologist of the subconscious, I like to go deeper. Deeper is my thing. So tell us, how can people find you? How can they find more about this? What do you have going on?
So a really good place to start is my website, claimyourfeminine.com. And you can check out my blog there, and that will be, I'm constantly posting articles. You can learn more about what I'm up to. I am actually launching a course on how to claim your feminine. That's starting in February. So if you like this conversation and you enjoyed this and you're like, ooh, I want more, I have more questions, like what about this, what about that? I, on a monthly basis and sometimes more frequently, like when I'm in launch, I do host these conversations also through Zoom. And to connect and get on that list, if you want to be on the next one, go to my website, and in the menu bar, just click on invitation, and I'll be sure to invite you to the next call. So I'd love to see all of your faces on the next one as well.
Yes, beautiful. Well, thank you. And I could be found at anna@bewellofwellbeing.com. And I'm offering to everybody who's on this call and might be listening to this call later, a 30-minute breakthrough session. So anything that you may want a breakthrough on, a quick breakthrough on, we could do that. And
don't pass that up. That's really good.
Yeah.
She's really so good. She's really good.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fun. I love to transform things very quickly and profoundly. And I will also send you, if you do want to call me for a quick breakthrough call, I will send you a customized meditation after the call. And those are beautiful. I've been doing those with binaural beats in a way that it really just helps with change. And I have 2 musicians that I actually get music from, with the intention of what we're transforming. So, I work at all levels, and, because I'm a musician, I add that to the life coaching and subconscious work. So reach out to both of us. I think we do great work, and we are here to populate the world with happy women and happy men and happy entrepreneurs and happy everybody, and really just embody our divine humans that we are. So with that, thank you everybody for showing up for lunch with Anna and Charisse today. Thank you, Charisse, for your beautiful insights. This has been very great for everybody. And send us an email if you have any questions that you would like us to answer by email or anything else. I'm sure we're both happy to do that. So my email is Anna with one N, A-N-A, at thewellofwellbeing.com. And Charisse, your email address?
Oh, mine is Charisse at CharisseSisu.com. So what we'll do is everyone who's registered is going to get emails from us, and so we'll have all of our contact information in there, the links to the downloads and to schedule and all that good stuff. So
yeah, excellent, very good. Everybody have a super magical weekend. Love you all.
Thank you. Bye.